Good evening. You're listening to Luscombe's Choice on Resonance 104.4 FM. This evening's choice is a monumental work, a 17-hour-long 15 CD box set released by the Naxos label in the early 90s, comprising Chopin's entire piano works for both solo piano and orchestra. The pianist, Idil Biret, who has had a rather prestigious career, notably studying under Alfred Cortot and Wilhelm Kempff, was kind enough to give me an interview from her quarters at Yale University a week or so ago, and this is what she had to say about the making of this box set. It's been written that prior to recording for Naxos, you weren't known as a Chopin performer per se. What persuaded you to undertake such a monumental task?
Oh, well, it was very easy. Klaus Heymann contacted me and then asked me if I would like to record the complete works of Chopin. So I was absolutely thrilled and delighted and accepted immediately. That's how it started.
Could you say what influence? I read somewhere that you hadn't been too satisfied with earlier recordings and performances you'd heard of Chopin until you met Wilhelm Kempff. Could you say what influence specifically he had on your understanding of Chopin?
When I started this project, I wanted to know as much as I could and listen to especially some recordings of the old days where some pianists like Raoul von Kochalski had been the people of Chopin, like Mikuli. So it was very interesting for me to see what they were doing and what were the priorities. So I read a lot about Chopin, his teachings, especially the book of Eigeldinger was a great help for me to understand the touch of the sound, the Chopin sound.
Faithful to Chopin as he would have played it?
Well, his priorities were he was teaching quite a lot, so we have many information about his teaching and what were his priorities. So he absolutely hated to have ugly sound. He always wanted to have a bel canto sound, which means that the legato was of a great importance for Chopin, and also that himself, when he played, especially his mazurkas, I think it's Berlioz said you have to sit very near the piano because he plays with such subtlety, but very piano in a way, in order to understand what he is doing. So all these things were very interesting to me, made me think quite a lot. So that's how I think I try to get more familiar with the spirit of the works of Chopin music.
Okay, fantastic. You also worked with Alfred Cortot. Could you also explain how he influenced your style and your understanding of Chopin's music?
Yes. Well, I was lucky enough to work for 2 years with Alfred Cortot, and during these years I played many of the Chopin works for him. So and also his extraordinary sound was something which remained in my memory. And also Wilhelm Kempff, perhaps it's not so well known, but he loved to play Chopin, and he loved Chopin music and played it beautifully. So also I remember their comments that one should never exaggerate in the, for instance, in a sense, when there was the indication of a fortissimo, it was always Chopin's music fortissimo, and never, for instance, the fortissimo you get in Liszt, because Liszt music, piano music, is mostly inspired of the orchestral sound. And the Chopin music is more inspired by the human voice, the bel canto especially.
It's been written that Courteau had, an amazing ability to make Chopin sound quite unlike anybody else. How do you think his technique necessarily differed from others who were famous or reputed for performing Chopin's works?
So I think all these pianists had an incredible sense of legato. And that's the beginning of the beautiful sound. So that means that the legato is obtained by playing without pedal and getting a beautiful sound out of the piano in spite of playing without the pedal. That was one of the things. And then Courteau was using his whole body, especially the shoulders. Sound came. It was a wonderful, heavy, beautiful sound, like a cello.
I was going to say, I've seen footage of Glenn Gould performing, and he's very sort of physically animated. Would you say there are comparisons there in the physical style of performance, anyway?
Courteau was very straight, and then he didn't move very much, all I remember, of course, I remember Courteau when he had a certain age. He was almost 80 when I worked with him. So I don't remember, but whenever he sat on the piano and played, it was always, you had the feeling that there was a huge weight, but in the very positive sense, in his shoulders, and then this was transmitted to his fingers as well.
And if I could ask you specifically about the recordings for Naxos,
yes.
How do you think your performances of the solo piano works differed from those of, say, Ashkenazy for Decca in the 70s?
Oh, well, I don't know. It's difficult to say because I don't quite remember everything, but it's everyone has his or her special conception. So I studied quite a lot, as I was telling you. So that's what I felt nearer to what I wanted to hear of Chopin. But there are as many ideas and conceptions as there are human beings and pianists in that case. So it's I think it's very personal. It's difficult to say something.
Yeah, so there's no one correct way of performing it apart from hitting the correct notes, of course.
Not one. The most important is to be as faithful to the text as possible to start with, and then comes something very mysterious, and then which has to be there. It's the inspiration of the moment, because you play one thing one day, and then next day you might play it completely differently, and that's why a recording for me is very comparable to a photo session. You take the photo of a moment, and the recordings are nothing more than a moment. Because you would just play differently in 2 or 3 days' time. There's not really, but of course the text remains the same, and it shouldn't be changed. But then there are subtle, small details which could be different.
Okay, well, yes, I mean, that sort of relates to one of my later questions. I was going to ask, it's written that apparently 400 hours of music was recorded for that particular box set, which only lasts for 17 hours. Can you describe the process of, I suppose, whittling such a large body of recorded work down to only 17 hours?
This is what I received as the definitive version. There are, let's say, I try to make always entire versions, and then among these versions, there's a selection made by the engineer or who does the editing, And then I received that version, and then there are things